Much, Liz, and thank you for having us. We're thrilled to be here. My name is Philip. I'm the education director at Music Haven, as well as the cellist in the Haven String Quartet. And like Liz says, the rest of the quartet is here tonight as well. Yaira and Gregory are our violinists, and Annalise is our violist. And we teach and run the nonprofit Music Haven in New Haven, Connecticut. We were founded in 2007 by Tina Hadari, and we'll talk a little bit about the history and exactly what we do in the program. But there's a little video we have that I wanted to share at the beginning, because I feel like getting to sort of see Music Haven in action it can do maybe the most to really sort of show you what a day is like in our life and in our program. So give me a thumbs up at the beginning just so I know you've got audio. But here's a little Music Haven background. Out a little. Make sure that hole is completely visible. Take your string. So there's a little of Music Haven in action. So we were founded in 2007 by Tina Lee Hadari, who is here in this photo. And Tina was a member of the Vinca Quartet at the time, and founded Music Haven on a similar principle to Community Music Works, who you heard from last week with Sebastian, of this idea of what if we take a string quartet, a professional string quartet, and embed them in a community where they can really become a part of the fabric. So rather than being a quartet in residence at a university or an institution, you're really a quartet in residence in a neighborhood, and in a city and in a community. And so when Music Haven started in 2007, they had a couple dozen students, and we've grown over time now to about 80. When Music Haven first started, all of the lessons, and here's Tina in our sort of one of our inaugural classes. Tina's in the red there. When we first quarters in downtown New Haven in what was at one point an auto repair garage, and so we had this fun garage space there, where the Haven String Quartet would rehearse, and this space sort of worked as both an office and sort of headquarters and a quartet rehearsal room, and also where we had recitals and potlucks and studio classes, and just about everything sort of happened in this garage. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we were able to move into our new space that you saw in that video, which is still in New Haven, and in the what's called Erector Square, which is actually where all the old Erector set toys were made. And actually, I had a student's dad come in once and say, like, have you ever tested for radiation levels? And I had no idea what he was talking about. And apparently there was an Erector set, in the 60s or whatever, that had some sort of isotope. It was like atomic Erector set. So I think we're safe now, but it's neat to be in this sort of old factory space. And so we have about 6,000 square feet now, where rather than us as the quartet members sort of flying by night and lugging Suzuki books wherever we go, all of our students come to us. And so we have students coming from almost 30 schools across New Haven to our space every day. And they come for private lessons and group classes in chamber music, and all sorts of other things. And so we have a relationship with the busing company in New Haven, where basically any student who goes to a public school in New Haven, there's a bus at their school that they can get on and say, like, take me to Music Haven, and they come to us for classes. And that transition for us as an organization about 3 years ago was a real sort of game changer, in the sense that it really created a community space for our students. And you saw in that video some of the homework help and the Legos and the chess playing and things like that happen in between lessons and group classes. And our space is also close enough to one of the big high schools that our high school students will now come and walk to our space after school, just to sort of have a space to hang out, even if they don't have a lesson or class that day, to do homework and to use a practice room or print something off the computer if they need to. So our doors are always open for our Music Haven students and our families. And that was something that we always sort of dreamed of, and it's been really fantastic to move into. I'm going to ask Gregory here to sort of walk through some of the breakdown of our students and our demographics.
Sure. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. So as you guys can see here, we have a really diverse group of students. I want to talk a little bit about how we recruit our student body. For many years, we just did it at first come, first serve from what was known as the federal empowerment zones, or the promise zone neighborhoods in New Haven, which were neighborhoods where the median income was below a certain level. Because of gentrification starting last year, we started doing some income thresholds, but not by any federal metric. We actually use the Connecticut state healthcare system, the Husky numbers, to do our income thresholds, which I believe are around 75 or 80,000 a year for a family of 4. And our goal here is to make sure that we maintain a really diverse population so that we're not just only going for one area. So we're really getting a subset of the entire community of New Haven. And you can see on the left there, our age range runs from about 6 years old all the way up through high school. The vast majority of the students right now are 9 to 12 years old, which is when we generally take students for the first time. As you can see, there's a few students who are a little bit younger, and the reason the 9 to 12 bracket is so large right now is because starting in 2018, we started graduating our first students. So we've had a large wave of older students go completely through our program in the past few years, and we're starting to build back up again. All right, Philip, could you switch to the next one? Thanks. Yes, and so going along with the diverse student population, we have a really large number of students who speak a language other than English at home, and we've been able to leverage in the past couple years. We have a really well-developed mentoring program for older students to work with younger students, and some of our older students who are in college now have actually started coming back to do work with the younger students again. And I'm thinking specifically of a student who doesn't speak English and is now working with one of our graduates who's at UConn on Friday afternoons. And we've always been really adamant that when those students, when those alums come back to work with us again, we pay them just as we would any other person coming to work with us. So though they may be doing volunteer work with us while they are in the program, and they'll always be part of the Music Haven family, once they graduate, they get paid just like anybody else. And along with this, we oh, sorry, Philip, one more thing on the previous slide. So we did have when we moved to our current location, we also we have we draw more from the Fairhaven area, and that's been really a positive development for our linguistic diversity, as well as the Fairhaven neighborhood is home to a lot of Spanish speakers. Okay, now we're ready for the next one. All right, so on this page, you can see a whole bunch of stats, sort of smorgasbord of stats. As Philip said, we have about 80 to 85 students in the program at any given time. I want to sort of draw your eyes to a couple things on this page. Across from the 82, they're the 4.5 hours per week that each student spends at Music Haven. That number is really important to us because we want to provide for our students an educational opportunity similar to what your average suburban music student who's able to access paid tuition lessons and stuff. You usually would have your private lesson. You might have a chamber music class, probably a youth orchestra, and sometimes some theory classes and whatnot in between. So that 4.5 hours on average is trying to fit all of those different classes in, and the number does increase as the students get older. So for our first year students, particularly the very young ones, they may only have an hour or two on site, but by the time they're in high school and they're doing mentoring, and especially if they may be doing some helping out with the students' homework and stuff and might be on site every day, that number can be much higher than 5 hours a week. And below that, the 8.5 years on average, I think speaks to our really low, much lower than average attrition rate. Most students stick around from year to year, and it really is one of the goals of our program to provide a longitudinal education where they can really get to know the entire teaching faculty and the entire administrative faculty as potential mentors to them. And it really is, it's an amazing thing to see these students grow up over such a long period of time. And I feel like it's one of the things that really makes Music Haven rare and special, that we get to know our students over such a long period of time. On the left side of the diagram here, uh, or yeah, sorry, the 85% of students that we measure above folks that have incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level, because the federal poverty level right now is about $25,000 a year for a family of four, which is just really unworkable in the city of New Haven. So we measure it as 200% of the federal poverty level. So you can see that the majority of our students are really from that lower income bracket. And just to finish out this slide, we draw from all over the city of New Haven now, 32 different New Haven schools. And next one, please, Philip. And then this is a slide that I'm actually particularly proud of, the pivot we were able to make to our students' basic needs in addition to their artistic education when the pandemic came in March and going forward from there. I was just so proud of our organization's ability to reach out to students and make sure that they had the technological resources, but more importantly, just the basic food security that was needed to make it through, especially the early days of the pandemic. I think it speaks to the agility that we have as a small organization, being able to know the families of each of our 80 students really, really well, and being able to reach out to them and make sure they had what they needed. And yeah, so as you can see, we were able to distribute laptops and Chromebooks to our students, and we had almost all of our students continue without missing a beat right from the moment that we went virtual in the second week of March. And then we distributed $3,000 worth of food assistance, often in the form of Stop and Shop gift cards. So it was a trying time, but I've been really impressed and proud of our ability to pivot there. So I think that's it for that one. I'm going to hand it back over to Philip now.
Thanks, Gregory. So our team is our organizational structure looks a little bit like this. We have the Haven String Quartet, which is the four of us who are here tonight, as well as two other teachers who each have full studios of students. That's Patrick Doan and Colin Ben. Patrick runs the Discovery Orchestra that you saw, also that beginner group, as well as another class, Music Bridge, which Yaira will talk a little bit later. And Colin Ben teaches a number of students as well, and does some music technology classes with the students. None of this would happen without our incredible administrative team either. Mandy Jackson is our executive director. Milda is our operations director, who helps do all the organizational work, interfacing with the schools and families and whatnot. Karina does our homework help and helps with a lot of attendance and day-to-day logistics, and Lygia helps support all of them. So there are 10 of us on staff total. I wanted to ask Yaira to speak a little bit about sort of the structure that each student has of their group classes and lessons. Here's here's Yaira teaching one of our students.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Yeah, so as Philip mentioned before, a few years back, we were able to rent this building, which used to be a toy factory and now converted into this Music Haven space. And I have to tell you, when students first entered that building, they were just at awe. It was just such an incredible, almost like invitation for magic. Each student in our program receives half an hour private lesson and somewhere an hour or an hour and a half of group classes. So the week starts with private lessons, and each teacher has their own private studio. here in the building. And towards the end of the week, we have kids placed in different groups. Sometimes it's a smaller orchestra, or it's a discovery orchestra of very beginners you heard. Or right now you see the picture of Music Bridge. And the Music Bridge is the program that Patrick and I started a few years back. Well, it actually grew into this program, but about 5 years ago, we opened our doors for refugee students and refugee families here in New Haven area. And and what started as, you know, us running into schools and teaching kids there, end up being this, and turned into this beautiful program called Music Bridge, where we have refugee kids as well as new kids from New Haven learning together in this picture. And of course, for the first year, all kids at Music Haven start with group classes. That has been the tradition from very beginning. And we feel that sometimes kids learn by observing each other better than words. So yeah, the Music Bridge is one of the programs. Then on Friday, we have, this picture here is the picture of one of the student recitals. So this is one of the venues that happens quite often, 4 times a year. Well, we have a whole week of different studios in the fall and a week in the springtime. Studio recitals are filled with parents, community members, and of course it's all followed by potluck, and that's the you know, fun part of the community building and being together and sharing music with each other. But coming back to our weekly schedule, so on Fridays we try to have, and this is all pre-COVID, we try to have all of our students in this location, and everybody's just kind of breaks into different rooms for different ensembles. And beginner class will have a discovery orchestra, intermediate class we'll have intermediate orchestra, Batman versus Bowman, and there's music lanterns class of some what we call time travel. So where we study music history, but in the sense that the imagination is like the main engine of the time travel machine, and we get to travel in time and explore lives of composers and musics and the surroundings that they lived in. So yeah, oh yeah, the next picture that's in front of you is actually the picture of the juries. So twice a year, every student has to play their scales and the piece that they're working on for all faculty. And this is the time when kids get most nervous, even though, you know, it's a usually pretty friendly environment. But what we do here, it gives us a good chance to kind of keep track of the development of each student throughout the year and overall. And if the kid is developing well, this is just like he or she goes through the pieces and, you know, everything is working. And if something is not working, then usually this jury is followed by a conversation with the parent. And we try to accommodate best we can to make it work for the family as well as for the student. So just to keep them on track. And it's also very helpful for us to be in contact with parents and try to kind of support the child from both sides, us from Music Haven and a parent at home, creating a best environment at home. Did I cover everything? Yeah. Okay, I will hand this to, oh, this is such a fun, okay, well, this is outside of our Music Haven weekly days, in our yearly schedule, we have all kinds of field trips, concert trips, symphony orchestra trips, pizza nights. And this is the pizza night here, where actually it's the best way for families to meet and connect and feel as a part of this wonderful musical community here in New Haven. And field trips are so fun. Kids love it. And that's the only day when they don't have to bring their instruments and they get to just enjoy their time. And one orchestra that I forgot to mention in my report was the Harmony in Action. And Philip will speak more about that. But Harmony in Action is the orchestra for older children in our program. And part of their work is also being useful community members at the community where they live. So they have all kinds of projects throughout the year that they organize. And another aspect of their work is mentoring younger kids. And we will talk about that further in a slideshow.
Yeah, thanks, Yara. Yeah, I think so. Harmony in Action, as Yara mentioned, that's our most advanced chamber orchestra that meets on Fridays. And that group, not only do we perform, they probably play, I don't know, let's say 6 or so, half a dozen times throughout the year at different spots throughout their neighborhood and, in the greater New Haven community. But as Yara mentioned, with Harmony in Action, there's also a social component where once a month we host a dinner night for them, where the students and I meet and share a meal together, as well as have what we call difficult conversations, where the students at the beginning of the year bring up a pretty incredible list of topics that they are interested in talking about and tackling that are not coming up at school. And these have ranged from trans rights to violence in their community to the sort of current climate now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's a really incredible discussion and a chance for us to both be together and try and sort of tackle some of these bigger issues. With the Harmony in Action group, they also get to do some fun field trips. We do a college trip each year with them, and a retreat at the beginning of the year. So this is us on a hike at Sleeping Giant, which is a park here in New Haven. And then one of our discussion dinner nights here going on at the office after rehearsal. And we also, one of the concerts we do each year is at the Veterans Hospital here on Veterans Day in New Haven. They've designed pop-up concerts at the local at the train station, as well as fun things around town. So they get to perform a lot. And as Yara mentioned, one of the components of being in Harmony in Action for our high school students, they at their freshman year can sign up to be or to agree to be what we call a high school fellow, where they mentor younger students. And I'm going to hand this over to Annalisa, who runs the high school fellows program for all of our students.
Thanks, Philip. This is one of my favorite pictures ever. This was from when Gregory and I had a recital together, and Noelle on the right, one of our advanced students, is tuning the violin of Liam on the left. And I love how you can see in this picture, it tells that story of Liam looking up to Noelle. And we know from research that students have more positive outcomes when they can see themselves represented in their role models. And our high school students at Music Haven are the most amazing role models for the younger students at Music Haven. They know exactly what they've been through. And it's rewarding for us as teachers whenever a practice buddy mentor comes in and says, man, they just didn't practice this week. I wish they would have practiced more. And we sort of have this moment of deep understanding. So our practice buddy relationships are empowering for the older students and empowering and build community for the younger students as well. Most of our students get their community service hours through the fellowship, and it's also how they can earn an instrument at the end. Other perks include the fellows trip. Here they are in New York was this the field trip to Juilliard, Philip?
And this was the Boston one where we went to Berkeley.
Boston to Berkeley, New York to Juilliard, pretty awesome. And for some of the young people, their first time riding the subway in New York. I remember that. All right, next one, please. So Philip mentioned the Harmony in Action dinners, and we had a really special dinner last year where some of our alumni came back to speak with us and with the current students about their lives. And we're so proud of and amazed by our alumni who are currently all enrolled at four-year colleges. And they taught us so much in that one evening about what they need from us going into college. We had done one-on-one help, but we didn't have a formalized program. And this year we're launching our College and Careers Pathway program. We started by putting out a survey to parents and students and alums, and then built this curriculum around their feedback. So not only do we have in these coming months the basics, vocabulary, college trades and jobs. One of the most common questions is, where does the money come from? So in November and December, we'll work together on that. We have a couple of alumni panels because our alumni are an invaluable resource. And we're particularly excited about guest speakers that we will be bringing in February, April, and May. These are professionals who grew up in New Haven, either went to school in-state or, as you can see in April, in the case of Ms. Red Hannon, went to Howard University and HBCU. She came from a New Haven public school, one that some of our students attend, then went to this prestigious university and is now back working in a professional capacity. So we're really excited about that opportunity to fill the windshield of what, building your skills and coming from New Haven, getting your education and reinvesting in the community can look like. And our students are, I don't want to just say they're amazing because it sounds trite, but really they just are. They're really incredible young people. And so if we can build skills together, I think they have so much that they can bring back to New Haven and to the world. So to have the opportunity to try to help pave the way and help get them more training to do that to the best of their ability is something that we're really excited about.
Yeah, thanks, Annalisa. Yeah, we're everybody in the quartet and on staff is so excited about this new College Pathways program. As an organization that's just a little over a decade old, we're sort of growing with our students in a way, and now having students that started with us when they were 7 and are now 17 or 18 and going through the college process. We're trying to think of ways that we as an organization can support them through all that. That's fantastic. The other sort of side of our day-to-day life is working and functioning as a professional string quartet, and we perform as the HSQ about 24 concerts a year, and I would say maybe half of those are sort of official, formal, quartet concerts where we're playing, late Beethoven and Bartok and all sort of the gems of the classic, or this classical canon. And the other half of those concerts are collaborative events in the community. We partner with the Yale University Art Gallery to do a series of performances and talks each year, where we sort of find the intersection between visual art and music, working with Jessica Sack at the Yale Art Gallery with that. And then just really fun concerts around town. For many years, we would show up at various places as the string quartet truck, and we'd bring a PA system and some mics and play concerts all around town. That's our mornings, our rehearsals, and then once the school hours are over, then all the students start streaming in. And all of this sort of requires a big asterisk in a way right now because of how COVID has changed everything. And as Gregory mentioned in one of the earlier slides, we did transition to online Music Haven in the spring. And in March, when New Haven Public Schools shut down, I think it's something like 40% of students either sort of had spotty or just no attendance, just completely disappeared. And now that in September, the numbers are much better in New Haven, but the idea that 40% of New Haven students were basically missing in action, and we had 96% retention rate, and New Haven is, or Music Haven is pretty amazing to me. That so that we very likely had students who were showing up for their violin or cello lessons that weren't logging in at any point for anything else. And I think that speaks to what we've always held as the most important sort of idea at Music Haven, which is the connection between us and the students and their families, and how can we build and how can we nurture that sense of community. So, a familiar sight to all of us here is our sort of Music Haven Zoom in action. And not to get too in the sort of nuts and bolts about what that looks like for us now, but basically how we've been dealing with the online world for our Music Haven is we've created basically a sort of virtual space every day. So like how in our Erector Square office, students can come in at any point when lessons are going on, even if they don't have a lesson, and hang out and do a Mad Lib with Karina or get some homework help or say hi to their friends and then have their lesson. That's happening in an online, in a virtual space now in Zoom, where students are logging in each day and having a lesson or a group class, and then leaving that breakout room and then hanging out and chatting with their friends. And we're I think 2 or 3 weeks into our season now, or our teaching calendar, and it's gone as well as we could have possibly hoped. So that's our little slideshow. I will stop screen sharing here. And if we want to open this time up for questions or thoughts or comments, and please, Gregory and Annalise and Yair, if I've missed any big points or if anybody wants to jump in with anything, please do. But that's our sort of daily life at Music Haven.
So people can just unmute and ask questions. I think that'll work fine, or raise their hands however they want.
Julia, I see Julia has a question here.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining in here for, to give this talk at the UMass Music Department. I'm really fascinated by what you're doing. And actually over this summer, I was meeting with a group of students from UMass along with my friends to see how can we as students do outreach to community, because of course, we love the music that we do and we really want to share it. So actually we're working on trying to do how can students do it. And my big question is in terms of the running side, what do you think is the most important thing that takes to be a successful outreach group like this? We have planned things we can do maybe 30-minute Zoom calls and almost kind of a music pen pal thing between college music students and high school students, maybe in the Amherst area, is the overall thought that we're thinking of. Of course, it's nothing official yet, but I'm just curious, what do you think is the most important thing when it comes to running an organization like this?
Annalisa, would you like to take this one?
Sure, I'd love to. I think that we as musicians have a really precious gift to give. And if you've ever played most environments you can play in, you can bring a smile to someone's face. And then we also can then use our capacity to sort of tailor our experience. So when we can meet community stakeholders and be really attentive listeners with them and sort of co-craft programming, I think that is a great chance for success. One of my dear colleagues in DC is in a piano trio in residence that she built from her there as a cellist, and she had brought on some a part-time violinist and pianist, and now they have their own nonprofit and working with this retirement community that's predominantly Jewish. They do a lot of Jewish music, and they do a lot of music from the 30s and 40s, and they do the same piano trios that they really love. So I think fostering a sense of exchange and collaboration where we can both like bring what we love and have creative solutions and open ears for what the community is also energized by can get us in a really good direction.
Thank you so much.
I had one question. Sorry, I just came out of the dark. I'm still in the dark. But I really appreciate what you guys are doing. It's so beautiful, and the pictures that you guys have and everything. It really touched my heart listening to what you all are doing. I had a question about kind of like, or maybe I missed it, but how do you get your students? You said you're like affiliated with schools. Do you go to public schools, like, and do you visit and talk about your program, or do they come to you, or do you have some sort of situation like with the counties or anything? How do you get your students, and do you all go on foot to public schools and kind of show people what you all are about, or?
Well, for many years we did. And for many years when our lessons were taking place in the school buildings themselves, a lot of the recruitment was just kids and their parents picking them up and seeing us running in with 5 baby cellos and 3 violins under our arms and a bag full of books and being like, what are these guys doing? And so that was Music Haven at the beginning, and we would do sort of recruitment events at schools as well. And we're able to get a lot of support from the New Haven public school system and from principals specifically that really bought into our program, who would encourage students to sign up for our program and things like that. Now, as it is now, one of the great things, because we have such high retention rates, our waiting list is 30, 40 kids long, or it fluctuates between 20 and 40 kids at any point on our waiting list. And so that's sort of where most of our incoming students come from now. And I think that part of that has just been the natural growth of our program over years, that the sort of word of mouth of families and community members and happening at the school. The affiliation that we have, and it really, it's, some of the hurdles that we have dealt with in the past are, we've spent, I dare say, hundreds of hours talking about transportation. How can we get kids to and from events and from lessons, and for families that don't have a car or don't have easy access to transportation or things like that. It's the simple and little things that can be insurmountable barriers for some families. And Milda, our director of operations, and Mandy have done incredible work and worked magic with the New Haven public school system to be able to allow us basically access and use of the New Haven yellow school buses. So our headquarters has been designated as an official after school site. And so students come from basically 30 different schools every day. They get on, bus number 3 or whatever on Tuesdays, and that takes them to Music Haven instead of home. So that's sort of some more of those nuts and bolts. I see Rose.
I was wondering if you could say more about when you were talking about how you create a situation where both the school and the home are supporting each other. How do you sort of create that synergy?
Yeah, maybe Gregory, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, Rose, could you say a little bit more about, maybe just elaborate a little bit on your question?
Well, I know you just had mentioned that you really try to create an environment where the school is supporting the student, but also the home is supporting the student. And how do you work with parents? Like, what are you looking for? What helps to create that mutually supportive environment?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. So we start every school year, and at least 2 times throughout the school year, we have what we call triangle meetings. And the 3 points of the triangle are the teacher, the student, and the parent. And we sit down and we do we really go through the year and the calendar and the expectations, everything from practicing to concerts to transportation, and for returning students, what things worked the previous year, what things didn't work the previous year, and we really try and emphasize that we're on their side and we have a lot of resources that we can connect them with, and that really is the opening point for that conversation, and it really is, it's an ongoing conversation. So as you get the lines of communication open about what sorts of things the family needs resources for the Music Haven events and the Music Haven programs, oftentimes once a level of trust has been built off of that information, then as the relationship develops, uh, information about schooling and what's working well and what's not working well, that starts to become part of it as well. And oftentimes we, like I'm imagining one of my students who was having trouble in a group class and was also having trouble in group settings at school, and so we can sort of, and in talking to the parent about these things, we can tailor the way that the student is slotted into different classes in Music Haven and the way their curriculum works to try and help them grow through some of those challenges. And again, I mean, it's part of being a program on the smaller side. We really do develop 80 individualized curricula for our students. And so it's to your question though, it's really about emphasizing that communication right from the start.
Thank you.
Hi, I had a question. First of all, thank you so much for making the time to come and tell us about your wonderful program. I was wondering, how do you pitch to parents that their children should be enrolled in this program? How do you, I mean, I don't like to use the word advertise, but how do you, or market, but how do you convince them to have their kids be entered in this program?
Hey, Yara, do you want to talk about your first meeting there?
Yeah, that varies. It depends. In my own experience, had parents who are really excited and really want their kids to be in a program just by going online and finding out. I also had experience where I would go to school and I would observe a kid for a few weeks at a time and talk to his classroom or her classroom teacher and find, see that, well, maybe, music would be probably really good for this particular kid. And the next step is actually convincing a parent. So I've actually had this experience when I would call a parent and try to tell about Music Haven and that it's completely tuition-free program and we provide instruments. And some parents thought it was a prank call. So we had those experiences too. So to convince them that it's actually, no, it's a legit thing. We spent time, we learn together. And this is the most nurturing and loving environment that we as musicians can offer to young generation. And it doesn't matter if they will become musicians or not, but if they spend time learning a skill with their hands, it's something that they can carry on throughout their life and also apply those skills to anything else they do. And that has been proven to be true so far. So there we go.
Thank you.
I wanted to add, or one sort of Rose and Sui, your questions are connected in my mind in a way. Gregory talked about that sort of triangle, right? If any of you have done any Suzuki pedagogy, this Suzuki triangle of parent, teacher, student, and for for students whose families have less resources or are struggling with sort of more basic needs than your typical, more affluent upper middle class student. I feel like a lot of what we do is helping support that triangle in a way, and both sort of and this is one of, as Gregory mentioned, the perks of having an organization that I feel like is at a perfect size in a way. And some funders and donors want to know, like, oh well, where are your next 100 students coming from? But when you grow to a point, or when we lose the ability to be flexible and malleable and help a family with their specific set of needs so that their child can still have this opportunity, I think is what's the most important thing in what we do. Because at least for me, when I think of the most important mentors in my young life, they were always my music teachers. They were always, even if you had a teacher in fourth grade that you loved, like in fifth grade you have a different teacher, but your violin or cello teacher, you were able to build these relationships over such a long time. And I think that's really one of the most important things we do. Somebody asked a question here in chat about our fundraising and instruments and whatnot. It's a great question, very important. Our fundraising breakdown is, I believe, about around 60% of individual donations, and through various fundraising campaigns we do during the year, and the rest through grants and some small state and federal support through things like the NEA or the Connecticut Office of the Arts. Our operating budget is a little over $600,000 a year, and that's something that we have to raise every year. A small sliver of that is also through earned revenue as the quartet, through our quartet concerts and various workshops and things that we do. But most of it is through the incredible support that we have and have built over the 14 or so years in New Haven.
Philip, can I drop the donate link into the chat?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I saw. Do you have a platform by which one can contribute financially?
I missed that in chat. Thanks for catching.
Please do. And many other wonderful things on our website, including our newsletter, where you can sign up to hear about this year's set of virtual concerts.
Julia asked in chat, getting a kid interested in classical music alone is very challenging. Given that strings are such a classical instrument, how do you get someone who's never listened to a violin interested in string instruments? That's a great question, Julia. I feel like at those beginning moments where a student, we do a lot of instrument petting zoos at libraries and schools and different things like that, where we put instruments in children's hands and they get to sort of have that first moment where they're creating sound. I think when we do those events, they're always so fun, and like seeing that, what Colin calls the fire. You see, like when you hand a kid an instrument, some are like, this is fun, and then they go back to the another part of the library or something, and then some kids, it's like a magnet. And at that point, they don't know if it's a violin or a gamba, or you could call it a kazoo. Like it's when they have the fire, you see that, and that is such an important thing. Now, that being said, and this is again that idea of supporting the triangle in a way, because even the kid with the best fire, after 3 weeks, they're probably not unpacking that instrument quite as often. But also, what we haven't talked really about tonight is some of the sort of harder questions that we as an organization are asking ourselves at this stage of the game about engagement, about, as an organization that's serving predominantly Black and Brown students, how are we hearing their voice and supporting their voices? And Annalisa, at one of her recitals each year, does a sort of a request where students have any song they want that she arranges for them at their level. And that's something that we've been doing more of, as well as one of Colin's classes this year is about the history of Black music and in America, and also as a quartet, we've been asking ourselves, how can we be better champions of marginalized voices on the concert stage and pedagogically, and so we're really committing to presenting at least one piece on every concert that we play by a composer of color, and sort of really pushing ourselves to sort of do that side of the work, the social justice component, in a more true way.
Thank you so much.
I had a question on how you guys divide your time on being just a quartet and being teachers for all of these students.
Yeah, who'd like to take that one? Yara? Yeah.
Well, as Philip said, every morning we meet at the Music Haven space and we start our days with playing together. And on a normal day, it's 2.5, 3 hour long rehearsals. And the quartet, we try to set up our schedule so the 2 weeks out of the 2 weekends out of the 4 weekends of the month, we have a chance to perform, and we schedule our venues close to that. So then, we rehearse in the morning, and then it's a lunch hour. It's a quick switch, and we go from the playing mode into teaching mode. And it's like any kind of training. With time, it gets easier, and switch becomes quicker and easier. And then the practicing then falls into the evenings and sometimes at night. So typical life of a musician, maybe, in a sense. Anybody wants to add to that from the quartet?
No, that's the routine, and it's I'm so thankful that we have it. I feel like when I was sort of leaving grad school and asking myself, what do I want to do, and sort of what drew me to Music Haven and this work, was really trying to sort of hit both targets that I was asking myself of how can I perform in a way that's artistically fulfilling and teach in a way that has a meaningful impact in my community. And at the time, Community Music Works fellowship program that you heard about last week was on my radar, and then Matt Beckman, who was the cellist before me at Music Haven, stepped down, and I auditioned, and that was it. And so I feel so grateful to have that opportunity. And and again, think of this in this current COVID time where so many arts organizations are shuttered, that we still have this incredible opportunity to work with our students and families and each other on a daily basis, and that Music Haven is still alive and thriving through this crazy time. I feel incredibly grateful for.
Thank you.
I have a question. How do you handle like the practicing? Or like how do your students go about practicing? Is that like a thing that they tend to do? Like they go to Music Haven after school and they like get practice there, or is it a thing that most students tend to do like more just like in their home space? Or like, I mean, I'm sure there's a mix too. So like what's that like?
Yeah, Annalisa, you want to?
Yeah, can I take this one? I think this fits in with transportation as one of the things that you can sort of more take for granted in your suburban upper middle class setting, that there will be a quiet space in a home and a music stand and enough space to concentrate. But our students have very creative ways of working around it, and with family support and with their ingenuity, they're certainly able to practice and thrive and succeed. Though sometimes it does take a little extra arranging. Something that we also will do is Gregory will make audio tapes that he will text to students' iPad or mom's phone, and then they can do back and forth, my turn, your turn, where they're hearing him play and then playing back. Or we'll also do that with YouTube videos, because a lot of our students are YouTube platform natives. So if they can go from Roblox on YouTube and pop right over to their cello or their viola or their violin video on YouTube and pop that up on their music stand, then they can practice in that way as well. So it's something that we're constantly experimenting with, and working to find innovative ways to help facilitate that practicing.
Well, if no one else has any more questions, I just want to thank you guys so much for spending the evening with us. I think it's just another really inspiring story for our students and for our guests. I also want to remind people that our next event is in 2 weeks, October 21st, and that will be Project STEP. We have a team coming from Boston, or in Boston, logging on, and then you can also check out the links for the other events in the series. Maybe I'll just put in the chat before we break up. But once again, thank you guys so much. It was a really great presentation, and I think we all got so much out of it. If anyone else has questions,